I'm the one that came and knocked on the door. I would issue a fine and penalty. Bad CSA scores, complaints, bad crashes, and hiring bad drivers would cause a review. The number one reason to get investigated, CSA score is a reason for insurance companies to charge you more money. That's it. We have an obligation in this industry to train these drivers. What do drivers fear? Getting violated, getting placed out of service. So how do you alleviate those fears? If you do all those things you know you're supposed to do anyway, you should fear nothing. Here's what I would tell everybody when it comes to a crash at the time the crash happens. My daughter's name was Katie. She was 2. Katie Coble was 2 and she passed away in a crash with a trucker. All because of one moment in time where a driver maybe was pushed too hard, maybe just drove too fast, wasn't paying attention for a couple minutes. It can all happen like that.
Time is money, so don't waste time when it comes to weighing your load. Download the Cat Scale Weigh My Truck app today. It's simple. It lets you weigh, pay, and get back to your business fast. Just pull onto the scale, open up the app, weigh your truck, and you're done. Look out for the black and gold Cat Scale sign and get a weight that you can trust. It's backed by the Cat Scale Guarantee. Weigh what we say or we pay. Download the Weigh My Truck app today, available in the App Store or at weighmytruck.com. Now let's get back to the show.
It's John Seidl. I'm a DOT coach, DOT consultant at Trucking Wins. You are now watching Truckin' Hustle.
All right, Hustle fam. We are back with another amazing episode. And today I have a very, very special guest all the way from Wisconsin.
That's how we say it.
Wisconsin, Mr. John Seidl. What's up, sir? How are you, man?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me in warm Philadelphia.
Today,
anyway.
Today it's warm Philadelphia. Yeah. Oh, man. So Trucking Wins. Trucking Wins is the name of your company. You are a DOT coach and a DOT consultant. You are also a former DOT officer. What is that? How do you explain that?
All right. So I used to be a state patrol inspector. So any drivers out there, sorry, I'm the one that may have pulled you into the scale or pulled you over at Roadside and did the inspection on your truck. Did that for about 12 years with the Wisconsin State Patrol, and then I became an investigator with FMCSA. So then I didn't pull trucks over as much. I went to the company and knocked on their door and did compliance reviews. So I'm the one that issued bad ratings, fines to companies in Wisconsin and Northern Illinois. Kind of expanded with FMCSA. I was on the ELD rulemaking team. I was an instructor at the National Training Center. Kind of traveled around teaching investigators. I was Investigator of the Year a couple years. And then I left FMCSA and went to the FAA, Federal Aviation, as a hazardous material investigator. So I investigated airlines like UPS, FedEx for hazmat compliance. After that, I got my insurance license, left the federal government, left state government, and I got my insurance license, started selling trucking insurance policies all over the country. Recently, separated from the insurance side, now I'm 100% focused here on Trucking Wins. What's the goal at Trucking Wins? To educate, to be that DOT coach, to try to help a company be better tomorrow than they were yesterday. And this podcast gives me an opportunity to discuss some of those things. And if they don't get enough here, all they got to do is go to www.truckingwins.com, sign up. I got like weekly coaching calls. Ask a question, I got your answer. Just like you're going to ask me some questions. And I hope I have the answers.
Yeah.
So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
You're coming in hot. All right. So how does one become an investigator of the year? I'm just curious.
Well,
does that mean you had to investigate a lot of people?
So what happens is companies get knocked on the door from the federal government to do a compliance review. And what are those ways they get a knock on the door? They have bad CSA scores. They get a complaint, maybe a bad crash. They hire some real bad drivers. And if the federal government identifies that your trucking company needs a knock on the door, then I'm the one that came and knocked on the door. I dig through their drug and alcohol, their CDLs, their DQ files, hours of service, vehicle maintenance, hazmat. And if I found too many violations where they weren't very good, I would issue a fine and penalty. Well, I kind of led the nation for a few years in fines and penalties and bad ratings. I'm a good guy, but hey, I was doing my job.
Yeah.
So I got awarded Investigator of the Year for a couple years in a row when I was really hitting it pretty hard doing these investigations.
Okay. Yeah. All right, well, let's start with some current events. We were kind of talking before the pod got started. I want to start current, right? Because there's just a ton of stuff going on that I think needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
First of all, we're just a few weeks or days away from Roadcheck week, right? May 12th through 14th.
That already just happened.
That just
today
happened.
Is the 15th.
Right? So
is it today 15th?
Today is the 6th. Don't worry about what today is.
Yeah,
Anyway,
we'll edit that out. So
whenever today is, right? We just came off of Roadcheck week,
Yes.
right? CVSA
Yeah.
conducted that, and the results are still kind of coming in. What are your kind of thoughts, preliminary thoughts, before all the results are kind of finalized? What have you heard?
All right, well, I haven't heard anything about how it went, but they focused on cargo securement and they focused on falsification and ELD tampering. Now, every year, CVSA, if you don't know who CVSA is, they're the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance. It is a, quote, nonprofit organization that is not basically governed by FMCSA, but they play a huge role in regulatory compliance. They're the ones that print and sell the out-of-service book. So if you get pulled over and they shut you down, they're the ones that print and sell the book under the approval of FMCSA. They have inspection bulletins and inspectors follow. So I don't know if it's too much power, but they have a lot of power. Well, they're the ones that sponsor and market and put out CVSA Roadcheck, this nonprofit organization, same one that writes the out-of-service book. And they do that, and it's a way to get inspectors, I'm gonna laugh, inspectors that generally wouldn't inspect very much, right? So like in Wisconsin, they may have 110, it's an example, 110 inspectors that can inspect trucks under the MIXAP program to affect CSA scores. On any given week, they might have 60 or 70 of them out there, and the other ones are in the office doing whatever they do. Well, on CVSA Roadcheck, they dust off the cobwebs. They make sure everybody has a nice pen to write people up, and they get all the inspectors in the state of Wisconsin. This is nationwide. They get them out there inspecting trucks. So you see an uptick in the number simply because it's a focus over those 3 days. And this year, it was May 12th to the 14th.
Okay, so let me read some stats here based on what I see now. I can't verify that these are accurate, but I think they're correct. So there was 15,952 inspections, 27,222 violations, 5,244 out of services, and 11,687 carriers were inspected. All right, so that's 32.9% were put out of service.
Okay, so it's interesting you asked that question when I just explained the CVSA out-of-service criteria book. I was at a trucking company, and I'm not going to say their name because I don't want to do that to them, but I was at a trucking company yesterday, and I was doing some training on maintenance and some hours of service, and I said, do you have the regulation book in this building? And they said, yes. I said, do you have the out-of-service book in this building from CVSA? And they said, I don't really know what that is. So I went on the website, you go to cvsa.org, click in the upper right-hand corner, it says store, you click on it, and they'll sell you one, right? And then you buy one from them, and it has 3 sections: driver out of service, vehicle out of service, and hazmat out of service. So if you get busted at Roadside for doing something wrong, like you just showed, the inspector will write you up on the inspection report, and it'll hurt your CSA scores if it's a violation that affects the scores. Then that same inspector will open up that CVSA book, read it, and see whatever you did, is it out of service? If it is in this other book, they'll shut you down. So 30% of the time that a violation occurred, meaning the inspection happened, 30% of the time they did something wrong in this book, get them shut down. Now, what's the problem? Revenue, right? Trucking companies make money. They don't want to give it away. If you don't have enough air in your tire, now you got to hire someone to put air in your tire because you didn't have enough air in your tire because this book says you're out of service. How much money does it cost to have a service come out to put air in your tire where if you'd have just done it at the shop, it would have been free? So companies are losing money. There's a lot more than just being out of service.
Yeah. All right. Well, with your experience, as an inspector, kind of tell us what was your experience like? Just kind of give us like a high level, just what was your experience out there on the road? Just, what were the things that you were looking for? What was interesting to you? What stood out? Let's just kind of get into that.
All right. So there's a little bit of a fallacy out there with maybe insurance companies and trucking companies. There's a thing called ISS. It's the Inspection Selection System. It's a green light, yellow light, red light system. If you type the DOT number into the ISS or they have like automatic, identification, it'll tell the inspector that this is a green light carrier, yellow or red. Well, if the inspector has to type it in, he ain't sitting there in the scale with his computer open, truck comes across, typing in 6, 7 digits just to see if they're green, yellow, or red. What's he really doing? He's just sitting there and he's looking to see if there's a violation. So it might be a broken windshield. It might be reflective tape missing. It might be one light bulb out. Something's going to trigger an inspector generally to pull you around. Once they pull you around, then they decide to do the inspection. Now, when I was on the State Patrol, we had this little motto, 4 inspections a day keeps the sergeant away, right? So in an 8-hour shift back in the day when I was an inspector, as long as I got like 4 or 5 inspections, I was doing good. Now, they also, back when I was an inspector, and it's still the same today, because they want to see if people are doing their job, I had to have 1 contact every 45 minutes. So if I had an inspection, 4 of them in a day, that would be 1 contact. Well, that ain't enough for 1 every 45 minutes.
Right.
So if I had a violation, like 6 violations with an inspection, that's 7 contacts, right? So if I find an inspection with more violations, I don't have to do as many. So as long as I stayed within that 1 every 45 minutes and 4 or 5 inspections a day, that keeps a sergeant away, and then I could find different ways to do it. In Wisconsin, you can just pull them over because they have a DOT number. In Indiana, they need a reason to pull you over. Different kinds of enforcement.
Yeah, and what are you looking for?
I mean, I was a big out-of-service guy. But there was a woman, and I could say
what does that mean by a big out-of-service?
Hours of service guy.
Hours of service. Okay,
I was a big logbook guy. So, I'm dating myself a little. This was more paper log days is when I was really into being an inspector. I started promoting then. So I remember there was a trucking company out of Minnesota, and instead of just sitting in the scale, I would go out, and as they're coming across the scale, I would jump on the stairs and say, show me your logbook. Show me your logbook. And you'd see the whole line of trucks. And if I saw the logbook wasn't current, I'd pull them around. All I was looking for was just log not current to start my inspection. Funny is the first guy was current. Second one was current. Get about the 7th truck, you look at his logbook, all the previous days were clean, but recently, like just now, like the last maybe 3, 4, 5 hours, you'll see the pen was wiggling because he was doing it on his steering wheel while I was pulling on scale. So I had one driver, log wasn't current, I pulled him around. It's from a company out of Minnesota. I could say their name, I ain't doing that. And he said, you need to pull my brother, his log not current either. So I pulled him in, the other guy came in.
No, he did it.
Yeah, but that was just my stick.
Yeah.
We had, and I'm going to give a shout out to an old coworker of mine, Donna Rooney.
Okay.
She's retired. She would sit in the back and just hang out in the back of the scale while I opened the scale. She goes, John, if you see a broken windshield, I need you to pull it around. I'm going to do the inspection. I swear she had like 100 inspections in a row that were all started with a broken windshield. That was just her job.
That was her thing.
That was her thing. It could be overweight, hours of service, speeders, maybe seat belts. Most inspectors have their own little thing.
They're practitioners of like one thing that they like to really look for.
That prompts the inspection.
That prompts everything.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So what's the biggest mistake that drivers make during a roadside inspection?
Well, I have this, when I do trucking wins, and I do training, and I do driver meetings, we do a lot there. I have this one slide, right? And the first thing on the slide is be nice. Why?
Nice.
Well, I have kids. I don't know if you have kids. I
do.
got kids. So are your kids ever going to win an argument with you? No, right? They could be right.
Well, I have girls. They win every
they
argument.
might win. Well, they ain't going to win
They win
against
the
your
battle,
wife.
but they don't win the war.
Yeah, they're not going to win against your wife.
That's correct.
Yeah, there you go.
That's
so
correct.
you're probably a little more, I don't want me to do that. But anyway, be nice, because if you start arguing with the officer, chances are you're never going to win, just like your kids don't win in an argument against you. You could be right. You might be able to defend yourself, but there's no sense trying. All it's going to do is make the inspection go worse. Instead of arguing with him, kind of take a different approach. Be nice and then act stupid. Act like you don't know the rules. Act like you don't understand what he's telling you. And you say, officer, can you help me? If I go back to my company with this violation you're saying I did, they're going to yell at me, but I don't understand it. Can you explain it to me? Can you show me in the book where it says it so I can take a picture of it and show my boss? Because they told me something different and I know you're right. So see how I'm taking a passive approach?
For sure.
Now, what I'm basically want to say is, you're wrong, you're stupid, you don't know what personal conveyance is, I'm right, you're wrong. But you're not going to win that. So now when you do that, some officers might be like, hey, I ain't even right here, right? Because now we're starting to try to look it up. Most won't admit that. They might just say, I'm going to let you go. I'm gonna do you a favor. Well, they really just don't want to admit that they're wrong. Now, if they still give you the violation, the good part is you could say, I want to take pictures of the violation. Why do you want to take pictures? They're going to get offensive. Say, my safety director requires me to take pictures, company policy. Now, why am I asking him to explain? Why am I being nice? Why am I taking pictures? So then I can go back and do what's called a data queue. A data queue is where I can submit evidence to challenge that the officer's wrong. I just did one last week. We got 4 violations out of Kentucky. All 4 were hours of service violations, 2 violating the 14-hour rule, 1 for not being trained on an AOBRD, and the other one because our driver legitimately drove 45 minutes in yard move. Oopsie. So I did a data queue and challenged 3 of the 4, and we won.
What's happening behind the scenes when a data queue takes place?
All right, so they just came out with a new regulation and a new policy guidance. There's always been a complaint with data queues that one state will address them quickly, other states take too long. The data queue goes directly to the officer, and you can never get it past the officer that wrote up the violation in the first place. They just came out with a proposal, and all the states are modifying their data queue procedures to where now it's going to be a several-step process. If you go the first one and it's denied, you can appeal, and it has this appeal process that can be built in that all states have to follow. And if they don't follow that process nationwide, they're going to lose federal funding. So previous to this, and currently, because it's not in place yet, some states treated it different and didn't handle the data queues the same. So Minnesota, sometimes you submit a data queue, it'd take months. Wisconsin, you submit the data queue, usually done within a day or 2. How come 2 different state police have 2 different approaches to data queues?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about some other current events. MODUS. What's going on with MODUS, man?
All right, so you go to the portal. As we speak today, you go to the portal right now, and it's going to say the portal's closed. Go sign up to MODUS as a trucking company.
Yep.
Then the web.
First, let's start with what MODUS is and why the FMCSA is now moving everything to MODUS. Let's start there.
Oh, yeah, that's good. So let's go back.
Let's go back a little bit.
Last fall.
Yeah.
The portal and your MCS 150 is the way you would update, the portal and your MCS 150 is the way you would update your information in the system. Then they came out with MODUS, and on December 8, 2025, supporting companies had to use MODUS. MODUS is replacing the portal. MODUS requires extra authentication. You have to take a copy of both sides of your driver's license. You got to do facial recognition. FMCSA is sick and tired of people that are ghosts, that they can't figure out who is starting a trucking company, who's changing information, who's reincarnating as chameleon. They could never pin it on an actual person. So now to apply for a DOT number, to update your information, starting with MODUS, they now know who the actual human being is with a driver's license and facial recognition as to who's responsible for the activity of that trucking company. So now they can go after that person. So on December of 2025, supporting companies already started using MODUS, the new registration system. That would be like insurance carriers, BOC3, third-party administrators, all those supporting companies, surety bond companies, all of them. They're the ones that had to register in December. Trucking companies, they said, hold off, don't register yet. But as of yesterday, they wanted you to update your information in the portal. So people started doing that last week, and the portal's crashing a little bit. People can't get in because there's too many people doing it.
Yeah.
And then on the 18th, Monday, they're opening MODUS for trucking companies to go in and register with their driver's license or information. Has any trucking company registered to MODUS as of today? No. On the 18th, yes. I'm excited to see what next week brings.
Okay.
Yep.
And let's stick to current events, man, because we're just dropping some stuff.
Yeah.
So recently, the SCOTUS, Supreme Court, recently ruled that now brokers can be held liable for accidents and things of that nature, and where before they weren't with trucking companies. What are your thoughts on that?
All right, so I'm a guy that has been hired by insurance companies like Great West, Acuity, West Bend Mutual. These insurance companies have hired me in the past to defend trucking companies against plaintiffs' attorneys. So I'm familiar with the whole landscape of getting sued. And C.H. Robinson got sued back in 2017 because they hired a trucking, as part of the lawsuit, They were accused of hiring a trucking company that had a conditional rating, and that trucking company got in a crash, and that crash resulted in injuries. And the person injured sued C.H. Robinson, and they lost. But then C.H. Robinson appealed all the way to the Supreme Court, as you just said, and the Supreme Court decided, 9-0, that brokers can be included in personal tort law, plaintiff's lawsuits. So now, in my history, I always saw, the plaintiff suing the trucking company and the driver.
Yeah.
It didn't really go much further than trucking company driver, so I would help defend those two. Now we're going to see an uptick in a third person in the lawsuit. Trucking company, driver, broker. So brokers are kind of in panic mode a little. Not 100%, because they knew that when C.H. Robinson lost the lawsuit, they needed to change their ways. This trucking company was conditional that C.H. Robinson gave a load to. Back then, brokers and insurance companies started mandating that you had to have either a satisfactory or be non-rated. Well, you fast forward now, some of those things of vetting carriers have already occurred because of the decision way back when. But now it's going to another level. We're actually going to start seeing them have to defend themselves, where before it was just one incident that was making its way through court. You see?
Yeah. What immediate changes do you think you're going to see brokers making now?
All right, so there are some third-party vetting companies. I don't want to mention their names because there's a lot of controversy over one versus the other, and there's not a lot of them.
Sure.
But what do these vetting companies do? The brokerages hire a vetting company, and then they monitor some things that are open to the public. So let's talk about them, right? What is the carrier's rating? I already said that C.H. Robinson hired a conditional carrier. How do you become conditional or unsat, which is the two worst ones? Remember, I was an investigator. I would do reviews and I would hand those out. That's why I was investigator of the year, right? Yeah. But then non-rated and satisfactory are two non-adverse ratings. So one simple way is, if you're a freight broker, do not give any loads to anyone who is conditional and unsat, and you'll never have to defend that item. It's public record because you can see it right on the Safer website. Now, CSA scores. They're not supposed to be public. They used to be public back in the day when I was younger, a little older now, and they removed them from public view. In order to see a CSA score, you're supposed to have to log into the portal or MODUS as the trucking company. However, there's a live data feed that FMCSA has published. So every third-party company in the country, any broker, any shipper, Amazon's using it. It's a live feed of roadside inspections daily. So if you get all the data from FMCSA daily and you build it into a computer program, you can figure out what everybody's scores are. And then you sell those scores to brokers and motor carriers and shippers, receiver and insurance companies. So is it really public? Well, it's not public, but it's available. All you gotta do is buy it.
For sure.
Right? So these brokerages now have access to the CSA scores. So they're gonna have to make decisions. What CSA scores are okay and which ones aren't? I can tell you one company in the country that is now there's another side to this, but one company in the country that offers freight that is very aggressive in CSA scores is Amazon Prime. If you have alerts or if you have out of service of drivers that it's too high for driver activity or a vehicle, they immediately cut off all your lanes. I've seen it. You have 30 trucks, you're hauling for Amazon, you go into an alert, no more freight for you. They don't even care if the trailers sit there. You're done like now. Am I going to see more of that? I think we're going to see more of that. And I feel bad for trucking companies that may get a couple violations in hours of service, go into alert, and maybe some of these brokers are going to cut them off, and it's not fair.
Where does alert start? Let's talk about and dive into CSA scores, right? Mm-hmm. Like the scoring system. I mean, most people watching this should be pretty familiar with how it works. Yeah. But for those who don't understand what a CSA score is and how it works, the rating 0 to 100, can you kind of break that down and talk about how that CSA score is kind of, how do you come up with that CSA score?
All right, so let's start with CSA scores. Why were they invented?
I like that.
They were invented by the government so investigators like me would know who to go visit. If I could only do 60 investigations a year and I got 12,000 companies in my state, we have to find the worst 60, right? Remember I said bad CSA scores, complaints, bad crashes, and hiring bad drivers would cause a review. Of those four, the number one reason to get investigated is bad scores. So the government needs a way to find out whether your company or my company is better. If my scores are higher, they visit me. Your scores are lower, they don't visit you. So that's why it was invented. Now that it's invented, who uses it to mess with trucking companies? Attorneys. Attorneys will use it. And if you have bad CSA scores and the government wants to visit you, the attorneys are going to say, you're no good, you're unsafe, you're horrible. How could you possibly, for a broker, hire this company with bad scores, right? So CSA scores were invented by the government, but brokers use them. Who else uses them? Shippers. Shippers and receivers, even if you're not a broker. They don't want to give loads to carriers that are going to be problematic for them. And then, so attorneys use them, freight brokers and shippers use them, government. Last one is insurance companies. CSA score is a reason for insurance companies to charge you more money. That's it. Now, it's part of underwriting and vetting, but if you have CSA scores that are high, expect a higher quote. You want to control your renewal, get out of the alerts in CSA. So there are 7 basics. How do you get a bad score? You get a roadside. They pull you over. They assess some points to it. They assess some time weight to it. They add it all up, and then you're in 5 peer groups. And they say, do you have more points than someone else in the peer group? If you have more points than the other guy, your scores are higher. So what's the goal of CSA? Stop getting violations. When you get pulled over, get a clean inspection. Whether you get a 1, 2, or 3, don't violate, don't get out of service, and you'll control your CSA score. What does it matter what the formula is behind CSA scores? You just don't get violations. But it is important to know the formula, right? So unsafe driving and crash, the formula is based on average power units, miles per power unit, which is called the utilization factor. It's a math problem that is manipulated, and I won't get into the crazy details how it works. You can come to Trucking Wins and find that out. But you can manipulate, and I'm not saying it's right, you can manipulate your CSA scores by how many units you put in the system, the average power units, the miles driven, which develops a utilization factor, and you can lower your score. And many companies lie in that category on their MCS 150, keep those 2 down. The other CSA scores has nothing to do with power units and mileage. It's number of inspections and the points you get based on those inspections. And then there are 5 peer groups in CSA. How I say that is, we used to be sports fans and we're not so much no more. The NBA is like Schneider National. All the NBA players compete against each other. All the big carriers compete against each other in their event group for these CSA scores in those categories. Then you get like Division I, Division III, high school, and Pee Wee League. The trucking company with like 3 trucks, they're competing against everybody with 3 trucks. That's like the Pee Wee League. Well, we're not going to have Schneider National's algorithm compete against the Pee Wee League guy. So if you can stay in your safety event group, you have an advantage. But if you start moving up in CSA safety event groups, it kind of hurts you. You see?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of math problems, a lot of formulas, a lot of safety event groups, et cetera. But an inspection stays in CSA for 2 years.
2 years.
Yep. So if you work for a trucking company and you get violated today and you quit tomorrow, the trucking company has to suffer through your inspection violation for 2 years. And they multiply it times 3, 2, 1. If you get an inspection, they get points for it. The more serious violation, the more points. Less serious, less points. They multiply those points by 3 for 6 months, 2 for 6 months, and then 1 for 12 months. Takes 2 years to get rid of that. So now we can go on and on about the formalization of it, but I hope what you're getting here is it's complicated.
For sure.
So you need a DOT coach to help you navigate through the complicated nature of CSA. But forget how the formula works. Stop getting the violations.
Okay.
Because it doesn't matter how they calculate them if you just don't get them.
So let's get into that. How do you stop getting the violations? What can you do preventative to make sure that you're not getting these violations?
Well, it all depends on what category of violation you're talking about, right? So hours of service. Let's go back to the CVSA Roadcheck that we talked about. ELD tampering is one of the problems that we're seeing in the country. When I say ELD tampering, I don't want to blow your mind, but I think you probably heard of it. There are ELD vendors that self-certify, and they have a team of people wherever they are, overseas, hidden in somebody's basement, I don't know. The ELD vendor will modify the driver's log.
Sure.
Illegally, right? So how do you stop violations? Well, some of the companies are knowingly violating by hiring or contracting with ELD vendors that can manipulate the logs. Now, if you're a company that's not doing it on purpose, like we've seen in the media, and you have logbooks that you want to be under control, but they're not, it all has to do with monitoring. A driver will try to get away with what they can with their logbook. Example, let's say a driver is running out of hours and he's almost there and he logs off the ELD and drives the rest of the way. The ELD will have an unidentified mile, meaning I logged off. How is the ELD supposed to know I'm the driver? Doesn't know. So then I deliver, my log shows off duty. It looks like I have a 10-hour break, doesn't show a violation. There's two problems. One, on the back office side, there's a little report that says truck number 12 moved for 2 hours and there was no driver attached to it.
Sure.
Well, what if you don't have a staff member in the back monitoring that? Now, if you have someone monitoring that, then you assign it back to the driver, they accept it, then the driver knows you're watching. Well, what if the driver never gets called on it? He's like, I'm going to log off and drive, see if this works. And then it works. And then he tells Freddie and Teddy and Eddie that they can do the same thing. Now it's an epidemic. Your entire company's just logging off and driving. Same thing goes with PC, yard move, agriculture, whatever it is, any exemption they want to use in the logbook, if they're pushing it to get to where they need to go and there's no one on the back office monitoring it, then they get pulled over and the officer's like, you use PC to deliver the last 3 parts of your load? And then you get a false log. Well, if your company was looking at it,
right,
they would see that. So some of these ELD vendors have the ability to like make reports for yourself, personal conveyance report, yard move. About a week ago, I was at a company and I said, how do you monitor personal conveyance? And they started fumbling around, clicking around their database, trying to find out where there's a report for personal conveyance. So I waited for them to just fumble around and I said, click here, click here, click here. And it gave me the report. Then I sorted it by distance. And then the worst offender, his name was Jimmy. Jimmy pushed personal conveyance for like 5 hours. He drove like 300 miles on personal conveyance and he put food down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, come on, man, you gotta like watch this. You gotta monitor it. So for hours of service, if you're not doing it on purpose, you have to monitor, educate, and train to make sure drivers aren't doing it maliciously.
Right.
When it comes to vehicle maintenance, it's pretty clear. You need to make sure your drivers are doing pre-trips. You need to support them to get repairs made because if they're getting repairs made, they're not making money. So if I report a repair, but it's going to cost money out of my pocket, why do I want to go get it fixed, right? So pre-trips are important. Post-trips are important. Have a good maintenance department is really important. They have some apps where you can actually put an app on your phone and you can make the driver take pictures while he does the pre-inspection. And those pictures come back and it's like AI and it automatically detects whether or not the driver hit all the benchmarks. Then you can go in and you can see whether the driver actually did his roadside inspection and see what violations he may have taken a picture of and drove anyway. So you got pre-trip, post-trip, that's the maintenance side. You've got hours of service, that's the monitoring side. Then you have speeding, cell phones, following too close, all of that. Well, cameras are important for that. If you have a facing forward camera, you should have an employee monitoring that camera. You should absolutely have triggers to notify following too close, lane deviation, and then that person should address that with the driver. Now, with all these things, here's the problem, man, right? If you get on a driver about a pre-trip, you get on a driver about his logbook, you get on a driver about how he's driving the vehicle, that driver's just going to quit and go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So where's this delicate balance? You want to improve your CSA by education, monitoring, and discipline and action, but you can't do it too much because then the driver leaves and now you used to be 100 trucks and now you're 5, right? So where's that delicate balance? And now there's a driver shortage coming too. So it's a tough thing.
So just kind of listening to you, it sounds like it all really comes down to corrective action, right? It's like these things are going to happen. Drivers are going to, do things out there on the road, and but you have to correct it. You have to get them to sign off on it, and just right, like there has to be some sort of process that you have, and I think that's where a lot of trucking companies fail. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yes, it is the procedures. Having a discipline procedure, having some kind of discipline procedure or policy where you're escalating it up into termination. Again, the problem is they're afraid to lose drivers.
Right.
Because if I don't have a driver, my truck's sitting there, I might have to pay insurance for it. I'm not making any money off the truck. I'd rather live through a driver that's maybe not as good. Now, is that a good approach? I don't think so, but it's a delicate balance because of how the violations are found.
How much weight do those corrective actions hold? Like, let's say something happens out there on the road, a driver did something, they falsified a log, you corrected it, you talk to the driver about it, but then they go out again and then there's a accident, right? But you see that there was something that was a little bit sketchy in the log there when they do the research and report. Yeah. What do the corrective actions, what kind of weight do they hold?
Well, it depends how bad that driver wants to stay with that trucking company.
We built TNH IQ just for you. TNH IQ Smart Plan is your profit planner that fits right in your pocket. You build the real cost profile one time. Truck payment, fuel, insurance, tires, everything. And now every load gets judged in only 3 seconds. Evaluate that. Go to TNH IQ and sign up now for free at tnhiq.com/login. Let's go.
Right? If the trucking company the driver's working for, he don't give two hoots whether he stays there, telling him you're going to let him go or terminate him, he knows there's a job right across the street he can get tomorrow, right? So now what I like to do in my driver meetings is say this. All right, driver, if you don't care about my CSA scores, you don't care about my compliance, you don't care about my insurance rates, let's talk about how this affects you. So, driver, if you get a speeding ticket and you're convicted in court, it goes on your MVR. You get an unsafe lane deviation, get a ticket, it goes on your MVR. Your MVR, your motor vehicle record, is your resume. You leave me because you messed up my scores and I get rid of you, you got to go apply somewhere else and you got to show them the MVR. If you mess up your MVR on my time, it's going to follow you where you go. Well, what if I don't get a ticket, he says? Well, there's this thing called the PSP. It's the pre-employment screening program.
Yep.
A trucking company can spend $10 and get a history of 3 years of roadside inspections and 5 years of crashes, right for $10. So when I hire a driver, I tell all my customers this. When you hire a driver, you show him his MVR. You show him his PSP. And you say, I'm going to hire you even though they say this. Now, if you mess up my scores and you get violations while you work here, I'm going to let you go. And it's going to go on these 2 pieces of paper. So when you apply for a job, your resume looks like crap, right? That is what you need to educate your driver on, how it affects him if he doesn't care about you. Let's talk about a trucking company. Half the drivers might care about the trucking company. The other half don't. So you got to make them care about it. So now hours out of service. Remember the CVSA criteria?
Yep.
How do you get a driver to make sure they do an inspection and not be placed out of service? You tell them when you're out of service for logs, you're going to sit for 10 hours, you ain't going to make no money. When you get out of service for maintenance, you're going to sit there till someone can come and fix the truck. And when that happens, you ain't going to make any money. You make money with your tires rolling down the road. You don't make money sitting because you didn't find there was a flat tire and you didn't get it fixed. You don't make money because your logbook was all messed up. You don't make money sitting there for 10 hours. Now, what if that 10 hours is the price of doing business for him because he's falsified his log so bad, he's made up that money tenfold with some of this tampering going on.
Yeah.
So logs might be a little harder, but he ain't making more money because he got a flat tire, right? So maintenance a little easier to control by telling them they'll lose money. Hours of service a little more difficult. And then incentive programs. You give, this works for a lot of companies. You give them a wage, they know what they make, but then you add miles for a safety bonus. If you don't get false logs, you don't get speeding, you have do inspections, and you clean, and you're on time, and you're nice to my customers, I'll give you extra money in the form of a bonus. So you got to find what trigger it is for your driver. What makes them start to care? And then you'll get that driver, he don't care about nothing, right? You can give him a bonus, you can tell him it's his record, and he just doesn't give 2 hoots about you. Well, those are the drivers you just need to get rid of. If you can somehow resonate with them to get them to improve, then train them, educate them, give them the incentives, find out what their triggers are. But some of the drivers, they're just going to go from one company to another, and they're not worth keeping. You told me that one of your previous careers, you were in recruiting and retention.
Yep.
The key to recruiting is retention.
100%.
Yeah. So if you can retain drivers, they're your recruiters. How do you retain them? You train them. You be respectful. You be fair, etc. So this whole recruiting, retention, keeping drivers, trying to get them to comply, it is a difficult thing to do. And where I've been most successful is doing driver meetings. Because you see how I'm just chatting with you?
Yeah.
I chat with the driver. I say, come on, man. It's your record. It's your money. Yeah, it's the company, but it's you too. Do you care at all? And then another way to scare a driver is, okay, your log's false. If you kill somebody, who's going to be on the lawsuit? You. The trucking company's going to be like, well, that's a trucking company score. No, you're on the lawsuit too. Now we ask this question. How many drivers have ever gone to prison for bad logbooks? Plenty. Name me jobs in America. This will be interactive. Name me jobs in America where if you don't do your job right, you can hurt someone. We'll do it together. Pilot.
Okay. That was the first one I was going to say.
Right,
You
what
got
else?
me.
Yeah.
Anything with like gas or electric, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
You know,
like contractors.
contractors.
Food preparers.
Food, yep.
Police.
Police.
Military. Firefighters. Doctors. Truckers.
Yeah.
Locomotive engineer, boat captain, a carnival ship or something. Okay, let's keep going. That's like 10 jobs. 10, 12. There's
Right.
like 10 or 12 jobs in all of America
Right.
where you have someone's life in the palm of your hand. Now, of those, military is another one, right? Of those 10, 12 jobs, maybe 15, maybe 20 if whoever's listening to this, right? You can brainstorm, make your own list.
Yeah.
Of those 20 jobs, how many of them go to prison if they do their job wrong?
Damn.
Some doctors,
Yeah.
like Kevorkian, Michael Jackson's doctor, right? You know, there's a few doctors,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
mostly
yeah.
that's malpractice.
Yeah.
Someone might say pilot. No, they're dead, right? They did, you get 'cause it's a plane, you know?
Sure.
Firefighter? No. No one's ever gotten a firefighter in jail because they didn't want to go into the burning building. Cops, yes. Police, truckers, some military, a few doctors. Oh, wait a minute. Out of 20 jobs where you have someone's life in the palm of your hand at work,
2 or 3 of them.
2 or 3 or 4 of them go to prison if they do it wrong. What is one of those 4 that goes to prison? A driver. Your trucking company owner's still operating. You're in jail. You were worried about what you're going to get paid per mile. Now it's 17 cents an hour working in the kitchen.
Making the license plate for your truck.
Whatever it might be, right? So you need to resonate somehow. Maybe having this conversation I just had with you to the driver about their job's important. So, you know, and I'll say this, you go to a high school reunion. Everybody's like, what do you do? What do you do? And everybody knows what you do because you're famous. No, I'm just kidding. But what do you do? What do you do? And a truck driver will say, I'm just a truck driver. Wait a minute. You put the word just in front of your occupation, which is a professional job, where you have someone's life in the palm of your hand. You go to jail, you do your job wrong. How about that guy's just the CEO at a bank? All he touches is money.
Damn.
You know what I'm saying?
Cooking
so
right
don't
now.
minimize the importance of a driver. And drivers, you don't deserve to go to jail because of what company may make you fake your logs, you see? You don't deserve to go to jail because you had pressure to get a load done where if you'd have just chilled and made it and communicated that the load's going to be late, so be it. You are the hardest working one in this whole chain. No one works harder than a driver. Company owner, insurance, DOT guy, no. Podcaster, no. They're the hardest workers in this industry with the most to lose, and they're the ones that sacrifice the most to get it done.
Yeah.
So to me, we need to resonate with these drivers and make them see the bigger picture. And whatever that trigger is for them, that's our job, right? Whether you're a safety director, company owner, it all comes down to your safety culture. What do you care about, money or people? Yeah, it's a passion I have, as you can see.
Man, I love how you just put that. I love how you just talked about educating the driver and just putting the onus on them, right? Just letting them understand, like, this is your license too, right?
Yeah.
But to your point, it is a safety culture thing because a lot of it's like an epidemic, honestly. A lot of these companies, even the big ones that we all know, there is pressure to get these loads done. They do act as if they have a safety culture on the outside looking in, but when you go in there internally, it's not the same thing, right? Because they have the same pressure from their customers to get things done, and the drivers want to make money,
Yeah.
and those two things just pretty much equate to a bunch of facetious things, egregious things happening, right? So it's kind of tough.
Yep, and here's what I'll tell you. That just made me think of something, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you have these pressures to get the load done, but you know what a lot of companies fail in the United States? When we had paper logbooks, it was easy to get the load done. You just lie. Anybody can take a comic book. That's what they were called, right? Anybody can take a comic book with a pen and a piece of paper and an eraser and fill out a paper logbook, get the job done. Inspectors could only look at dated fuel receipts, very few tolls, no GPS. They had no way to see if you're lying. Now we have these ELDs. So there's hours of service exemptions that we need to embrace as a country, right? As the trucking community. Split sleeper berth is one of them. Split sleeper berth was around in the paper logs, but drivers never used it. Why? You had to learn it. It was easier to just lie. Well, now it's harder to lie because you have an ELD, so why don't we learn split sleeper? So at Trucking Wins, we've got Split Sleeper Secrets, a 47-minute video on our website of how to use split sleeper. Next one, personal conveyance. Some of these large companies are like, it's too hard to train them. It's too hard to monitor it. It's too hard, it's too hard. Well, the government put personal conveyance there to add flexibility to the driver so he can have a quality of life better than he would have otherwise.
Right.
So embrace personal conveyance. Just make sure they know how to use it and do it right. So I have a training video for personal conveyance, right? The agricultural exemption, that changed about 6 years ago. Did you know that you can drive for upwards of 6-7 hours in the off-duty status, and that can still be part of your 10-hour break if you're hauling watermelons? Unbelievable. Now, I had a woman that does agricultural. I contracted with her a couple weeks ago, maybe about a month ago. I told her about the agricultural exemption. She goes, I never heard of that.
Right.
So her driver's been running on the clock, chewing up her hours to pick up watermelons and deliver them when some portion of that trip could be done off duty, you see? Now, some would say, well, if you're driving off duty and you're not getting your full 10-hour break, you're getting a little short, well then, how is that safe? And I joke around, because there's a delicate balance there. If the driver's tired, he should pull over.
Right.
It's kind of like Forrest Gump. You ever seen a movie?
Of course.
Forrest Gump.
Classic.
I just felt like running, meaning running my truck.
Right.
I just felt like running. When I got hungry, I ate. When I got tired, I slept. And when I needed to, I went. Other than that, I just felt like running. That's the agricultural exemption. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So as long as you have a good quality driver that knows his own internal clock, his hours of service are legal. And if he's not fatigued, he can run off duty with the ag exemption. You got other ones too, which we don't get into. Adverse conditions, your big day, the short haul driver. There's all these hours of service exemptions. And when I go to a trucking company, some large, and I start explaining this, I'm like, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't know and your dispatchers don't know and your safety doesn't know, how do you expect a driver to know? So that's where we come in. We try to train drivers, train safety. So instead of lying in the ELD, how about you use the provisions they put in place to add flexibility to your driver's day? Then when he does those things and the job gets done and he gets pulled over, no violation.
Right.
And then when he crashes and they do an investigation, no prison time. You could actually have a driver hauling ag, could have ran it legal, but ran it illegal because he didn't know he could have ran it legal. Now that would be funny, right?
Yeah, 100%. It's funny that you mentioned the big day. There's a company I work for. You know, I'm not going to say their name.
Yeah.
But, you know, the 16-hour rule, right?
Yeah.
You're supposed to use that every 7 days or whatever it comes back.
It's every 6 consecutive days.
Every 6 consecutive days.
Unless there's a restart, then you can use it more often. So if you did it on Friday, you can do it again on Monday if you got a restart. But you have to leave and return to the same spot every day.
Right. But the big day, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're only supposed to use it in the event of like something happen, right? Like,
No.
You can use it.
Yes. You're talking about adverse conditions.
Adverse conditions. Okay.
So those are 2 different scenarios where you can use a 16-hour day.
Right. Okay.
The big day is 395.10, and it says every driver in America, and this is not the 150 air mile radius deal.
Okay.
Every driver in America that has left and returned to the same spot for the last 5 days they actually worked. So if I start in Philadelphia and in Philadelphia, start in Philadelphia and in Philadelphia, for my last 5 duty tours, that's the first part. Second one is I can do a 16-hour day every 6 days. So if I did it 4 days ago, I can't do it again unless there's a restart. So now, can you go over 150 air miles? Yes. Do you need to leave and return to the same spot? Yes. Do you get a 16-hour day, 1 day a week? Yes. Can you do it more than 1 day a week? Let's say one every 6 days? Yes, if you have a restart. So what I tell trucking companies, okay, my drivers are off every weekend. I'm local during the week. They always leave and return to the same spot. They're off every weekend. You don't even have to teach your drivers all that madness. All you have to tell them is Monday through Friday, you get one 16-hour day. Now, if you do a 16-hour day on Wednesday, you might not be able to start at the same time tomorrow.
Right.
Because you still need a 10-hour break. But it does add flexibility. They shouldn't be using PC on Wednesday to get back to their terminal when they could have used a big day. Now they get a false log, and the big day could have been used. Remember I told you earlier about the data queues where we won 3 out of the 4? One of them I argued the big day in one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. See, so I didn't understand that correctly because what we were doing it all under adverse conditions.
Yeah.
But the thing was, is like we were basically like almost scheduling the loads with the adverse condition already kind of predetermined.
Yeah, that's
like,
not a good
Are you
thing.
using your adverse condition day today?
No,
And it's like you
yeah,
can run
yeah.
16 hours today, and we were like the driver was scheduling it. Like you're supposed to use it when you need it, but
Yeah.
they were running it. They were using it in their schedule.
So the first one I said, you can schedule that one.
Yeah.
So let's say you have a run that for whatever reason it's impossible to make and you need it Monday through Friday. You have Teddy do it on Monday, Eddie do it on Tuesday,
Right.
Susie do it on Wednesday. You have a different driver do it each of the 5 days. And then you have them run days that are within the limit the other 4. That's scheduling it. Now adverse conditions, completely different. You have to have an adverse emergency condition unknown at time of dispatch.
Right,
That
weather or
delayed
something
you.
like that.
Yes, where you would have made it otherwise. Now, if it delayed you 10 minutes, that doesn't give you 2 more hours. It only gives you the amount of time the delay caused. But the perfect example you will always get away with adverse conditions, and you can prove it. I am going back to my terminal after I delivered. I'm headed back home. I'm going to make it there at 10 and a half hours of driving and 13 and a half hours on my day. I got 30 minutes to spare, you see? I'm good, and I do this every day. I always make it. But I got my camera on, facing the road, and I come up, and my truck slowly comes to a stop and sits there because there's a 5-car pileup up there, and we ain't moving. I sit there for 45 minutes, barely move. I'm now late, yeah?
Right.
10 and a half, now I'm at 11:15. 13 and a half, I'm at 14:15. Adverse conditions. I didn't know the crash was going to happen. I can prove the crash. I have a video. You save the video, put it on your phone. Officer pulls you over 3 days later. You were over the 11 and the 14. No, I wasn't. I put adverse emergency conditions, and this is what I got stuck at. He's going to look in the logbook and see your intermediate pings every hour. That one ping that was an hour apart, you had only moved 4 miles. Qualifying. Now, expect a blizzard in Philadelphia tomorrow. And it blizzards tomorrow. You don't get to use it for weather. That was known at time of dispatch. Everybody knew the snow was coming.
Right.
So come on, you can't do that.
But
Yeah.
so what is the main key difference between the big day and the adverse conditions then?
All right, the big day.
The key difference.
The big day you can only use once every 6 days. Adverse conditions you can use every day.
Ah, okay.
There's a crash today, there's a crash tomorrow, there's a crash the next day, crash the next day. Now, it's not just a 16-hour day. It used to be. Adverse used to be only 14 to 16.
Now it
It's
extends?
now 11 can do 13.
11 drive time.
Yes. So your 11 driving can go up to 13. That's why they gave you the example of both. But I don't know how many years ago, I have to look it up. You know,
Right.
I do memorize a lot, but not everything.
Yeah.
A few years ago, they changed that and they added the 11 can go to 13, where the 14 could have always went to the 16. And then that crash scenario is what I'm talking about. Flash flooding could be another one.
Right.
Black ice could be another one. Heavy, dense fog, unknown construction, some bridge collapsed, you know what I mean? But you just have to document this unknown emergency condition. That time of dispatch, it was unknown, and then it happened, and that delayed the driver. So it is predicated on an unknown emergency condition on the adverse. This is predicated on nothing other than you haven't used it. This one you can only do once every 6 days unless there's a restart. This one you can do every day.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for clarifying
yeah,
that.
no problem.
Listen, my hours of service knowledge is a little bit fuzzy,
It's
man.
all right.
It's been a minute since
That's
I've been
what
in the
we're
seat.
here for at Trucking Wins, because I've been doing this like 20, 30 years. I remember comic books. I remember, the old hours of service when you had to take a 10-hour break instead of, an 8-hour break instead of 10.
Right.
It used to be an 8-hour break, not 10.
Yeah.
You used to drive 10. Now it's
10-hour
11.
reset.
Yeah.
Now it was an 8-hour reset.
It was an 8-hour reset. Now it's 10. It was 10 hours of driving. Now it's 11. It was a 15-hour day. Now it's a 14-hour day. But they're calculated different.
What about the 34?
There was none.
There was no 34.
Get this one, man. Back before the 11, the 14, the 70, and a restart, if you worked Monday, this is crazy. There's no restart. If you worked Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 14-hour days, that's 70 hours. You had to take 3 days off. You had to take 3 full days off to reset your clock and chase your hours. All you old school truckers listen to this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You'd be sitting there for 3 days like, am I ever going to go back to work? Am I fired? So the restart was wonderful because it allowed you to stay home for about a day and a half and start the day over on a fresh clock for the week, no matter what you did the week before. So people saying the government never gets anything right. Man, that restart was really good.
Yeah. I remember my guys were they hated the rest break, the half-an-hour rest break. Did they do away with that yet? Or they still?
No. See, they had this. They do some crazy stuff sometimes.
That's what I'm saying. It's always changing.
Yes,
It's always some new rule, and you got to keep up with this stuff.
I'm going to explain 2 things of what you just said. All right. So the 34-hour restart, several years ago, some of you truckers would be like, I remember that nonsense. You had to have 2 periods in the 34-hour restart to be between like 1 a.m. and 5 a.m.
Yeah, some crazy thing that they came up with.
So you couldn't just take 34 hours. You had to make sure you took it like at 1 a.m.
Right,
so you
to get to another 1 a.m.
Another 1 a.m.
And it was crazy.
And that lasted about 5 seconds, and then they're like, this is stupid.
Right.
So then when you talk about the 30-minute break, and some companies still don't know this, you had to take 30-minute in a row in the first 8 hours of your day.
Right.
So if you started at 6 a.m., by 2 p.m.,
you needed half an hour rest break.
You need a half an hour rest break. Yep. And that rest break had to be off duty or sleeper. So then a few years ago, they changed that. We're going to change it. So they changed it, and now it's not 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's 8 hours of aggregate driving time.
Okay.
So if
on duty doesn't count.
Yeah, so if you get to 2 p.m., which is your 8 hours, but you've only done 5 hours of driving, you still have 3 more hours. That wasn't the way it was, but they changed that. And the 30-minute break can now be on duty. So you can be loading and unloading and use it as your 30-minute break.
People did it anyway.
Yeah. Well, they did it anyway, but they would log sleeper, berth, or off duty so it would catch. Well, now you can log it legal and still get credit for it.
On duty for your rest break.
Now, what's really cool about the 30-minute rest break being on duty is because you can use yard move.
Okay.
Yard move is another exemption that every trucking company needs to teach their driver and start using. Remember how I said PC and split sleeper and all that?
Yeah.
What about yard move? Yard move is essential for a trucking company to get the job done. I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm headed towards a shipper, and I get to the shipper. Now, I'm going to do this while we're on the air, and if someone knows split sleeper, they'll be like, this guy, right?
Okay.
All right, so let's say you get to a shipper at 13 or 14 hours, and you're like, if I go in there, they're going to delay me, and then I'm going to be done, and I can't stay there because I'll be over hours. And if I move at the facility, it's going to say I'm driving over hours. No, you get to the facility right before the 14. You go through their gate and you push yard move. Then all the driving on the facility is on duty, and you can work past the 14th hour. You just can't drive on a road. Well, you're not on a road. You're at the shipper. So you go and yard move over to a parking spot and wait for them to unload you.
Okay.
Then you're there, say, I'm going to use an example, 3 hours. And then they knock on your door. Come to dock number 5. You're like, I got to push PC because I don't want to break up my 10-hour break. I'm going to log off and drive over there. I'm going to drive real slow so it doesn't put me in the driving line. Well, instead of all that nonsense, why don't you push yard move to drive over there? Yes, your 3-hour break will be broken with a little on duty. Then when you're done loading, they say, leave my facility. You're allowed to use personal conveyance to go to the closest truck stop. So I would have a 3-hour break, a little bit of on duty, a little bit of off-duty sleeper berth. Then I get to the off-duty. Then I get to the truck stop and I do 7 in the sleeper. See what I did? I did 3 hours in off-duty while I waited to go to the dock. I used yard move to get to the dock. I used PC to go to the closest truck stop. Then I did 7 in the sleeper. I can take the 7, add it to the 3. You know what I just did at a shipper? I used split sleeper berth, yard move, and PC to get the job done at the shipper, where 99 out of 100 drivers will lie. There was a way to do it legally.
Right.
Teach your drivers how to do it legally now that you have an ELD instead of having some overseas ELD vendor tamper logs, right?
100%.
Because it's happening.
100%.
Get this, man. I had a trucking company in California. He's an old customer of mine. He called me, he goes, John, this woman just applied here. And I said, yeah. He goes, I need you to teach her hours of service. I said, what, did she just come out of school? He goes, no, she's been driving for 3 years from some company down in Chicago. And I said, well, she don't know how to service? She goes, no. She would pay him a fee every month, and they would edit her logs. So when she almost ran out of time, she would just call and say, I don't have any time left. And then she wait 5 minutes, and they go, and then she had time left.
There you go.
So for 3 years she drove, she didn't even know it, right? And we know this is going on. That's why to defend FMCSA, because everybody's gonna be like, yeah, FMCSA. With the ELDs, the registered list, in the first 3-4 years, FMCSA revoked none because they're self-certified. But the last couple years, they're taking complaints. They're listening, and they're revoking as many ELDs as they can that are shady. Like the article on 60 Minutes about all this happening, it's happening. Yeah. So ultimately, FMCSA is doing a better job. But what do we need to do as an industry? If you know of a trucking company and a vendor and a driver that is violating ELD rules and hours of service rules by manipulating the log, you do it the right way, they do it wrong, you're at a competitive disadvantage and it's not fair, yeah? File a complaint. Remember how I said they do reviews? CSA complaints. Complaints are anonymous, everyone. The investigator is not allowed to say you're the one that filed the complaint. If you care about this industry and the bad apples, you owe it, just like I do, to turn these people in. FMCSA will take action if you do your job to let them know who's doing it. I don't know how many companies are like, yeah, that company, they do that ELD tampering. Don't tell me that.
Right.
I'm John Seidl. I don't work there. I mean, if I have the details, I'll turn them in.
Yeah.
Now, is it good for my business to turn in bad players? Yeah. I don't even want to help them. Anybody out there that's a lying, cheating piece of crap, don't come to Truckin' Wins, because I don't want you to ruin the industry because of this. I want to help the people that want to do it the right way, that want to be good, right?
Yeah.
And we have too many that don't.
Yeah. I love it, man. This is a great little discussion, man. Because
Yeah.
number one, it kind of brought back some memories
Yeah,
and
that was
refreshed
great.
some hours of service stuff. But the thing is, like, this training doesn't exist, man. Like, they don't teach drivers this stuff. They expect you to know it. It's like, oh, you're a professional driver, you should know hours of service. But these little, ways to, legally run.
Yeah.
Drivers just don't know how to do it. They just don't really
Correct.
understand how to do it. And if you teach them, like you said, you'll avoid all these other problems. So
Yeah. And like I said, there's another part of split sleeper that's crazy, right? I call it splitting without splitting. And when I teach drivers this today, they're like, I didn't know that.
give it to me, because I hated split sleepers berth stuff all the
All
time.
right, so it's called splitting without splitting. Last night, I was at a truck stop. I get to the truck stop and I take an hour off duty. This is an example. An hour off duty to get in my pajamas, to brush my teeth like my mom told me to when I was young. So I do that. Then I get into the sleeper berth for 8 hours in a row. So I log an hour while I was getting a sandwich and getting my pajamas, 8 hours in the sleeper in a row, then another hour when I wake up to get dressed and brush my teeth and go get a breakfast sandwich and a coffee. So my 10-hour break is 8 in the sleeper, bookend by a couple off-duty hours, you see? Mm-hmm. Make a practice of doing that for your 10-hour break at a truck stop, and this is why. That 8, which is part of that 10, is the first part of your split. That's a qualifying split, even though it's in a 10-hour break. It's 8 in the sleeper. So now let's say I do my pre-trip, I drive, and a shipper delays me for 5 hours. That hurts my 14.
You're gonna get that time back now.
No, it doesn't.
Right.
Because the 5 is 2 or more. It can be added to the 8 in the sleeper berth. That 8 and this 5 are a split, and you don't count the split in the 14. So the 5-hour break does not count in your 14. So if you started at 6 a.m. and at 8 p.m. would be your 14, nope, you get 1 a.m. You can go from 6 a.m. to 1 a.m. with a 5-hour break of off duty because the 5 can be added to the 8 in the sleeper from the truck stop the night before. You get what I'm saying?
I do.
How many people know what I just said?
Nobody.
Nobody. I wouldn't say nobody.
But not a lot of people.
Well, the people that are trucking wins. I'm just kidding. But there's a lot of them that just don't know. So we need to educate them on that, right? Now, I can give you examples on how that would absolutely get people home quicker. Let's say you're headed home, and if they had not delayed you for 5 hours, you would have made it home. Well, you're not going to stop 2 hours from your house or an hour from your house to go see your family. You're going to push PC and drive. You're going to log off and drive. You're just going to run over hours.
Right.
Little did you know, if you would have done 8 in the sleeper, that 5-hour delay wouldn't have hurt you, and you'd have got home with plenty of time left.
There you go.
So we have an obligation in this industry to train these drivers, and especially with the ELDs. And like I said, this whole tampering thing, that needs to come to an end. You know?
Yeah, 100%. Okay, that was fun. All right,
Yeah,
let's move on to the feds. We don't want the feds to come knocking on your door, right? We when we talk, we had our pre-call. We discussed like the things that trucking companies and that drivers fear, right? What are the things that they're most afraid of? And if I'm a trucking company, I damn sure don't want nobody knocking on my door, man. What do you need to do to prepare for those type of scenarios, and what should trucking companies be thinking about before an audit?
All right, so let's talk about who is responsible for CSA scores in an audit. Drivers and the company, right? Those are the two. So let's talk about what drivers fear. Drivers don't fear a bad rating for the company. Drivers don't fear fines and penalties for the company. Drivers don't fear necessarily if the company gets a review from the feds. Little do drivers know, though, if the company gets a review from the feds and you're the violator, the feds can take a case against them and you. Whoa. Drivers like, I didn't know I could get a fine.
That changes the game.
When the feds knock on my door. Now, it's not the most common thing, but it can happen. So now, do drivers today fear that? Not really. What do drivers fear? Getting pulled over, getting violated, getting placed out of service, having them affect their MVR, having it hurt their PSP, and getting let go of the company they may want to be at, right? They should fear getting sued if they do something really bad and hurt someone. They should fear a little bit of prison, even though it's not common, what we discussed earlier.
Sure.
So they have these fears. So how do you alleviate those fears? Don't falsify your logbook. Don't run over hours. Fill that logbook out right all the time. Wear your seatbelt. Don't speed. Stay in the right lane. Don't have bad equipment. Keep your CDL valid. Don't restrict crap on your CDL. Don't do drugs and alcohol. If you do all those things you know you're supposed to do anyway, you should fear nothing, right? And if you're afraid that you need to get the job done, you should learn the things that assist you in getting the job done. And if you learned all those things, you do everything right, and some company says, you know what, do it or else. There's a federal law called the coercion rule. A driver can file a complaint against their employer for coercion. Brokers, shippers, receivers, and trucking companies are all subject to the coercion rule if you force a driver to do something. So drivers, if you're doing everything right and you still like you're being forced, file a complaint against the company. You have every right to do so. It's called whistleblower, right? Now, if you're doing something wrong, that's different. So now my suggestion is to try to alleviate all those fears for a driver by doing all those things right. And if you don't know what you're supposed to be doing, then learn it, right? Now let's take a trucking company.
Yep.
They fear everything a driver just feared because it affects their CSA scores. They're afraid because if he's getting sued and going to jail, it's so bad they already got sued too. I've never seen a lawsuit where they file a lawsuit against the driver and not the company. So clearly, everything the driver feels, the trucking company should fear.
Sure.
But then they have this additional level of fear. Getting sued, losing customers. Driver don't care if you lose customers. I mean, they kind of do, but not really. Losing customers, getting sued, having the government come knock on your door. So what makes the government come knock on your door? One, bad CSA scores. Thanks, driver. Or thanks management for not controlling the drivers and teaching them. Fair? So CSA scores. The next one's a complaint. Now, I told you that if we have anybody listening to this and they know of a company that is illegally tampering with logs, but it doesn't have to be a company. It could be a driver. If you worked for a company and you know they did this to you, turn them into the feds, right? That's what we need to do to get this industry where it needs to be, right? So complaints. Now I'm gonna tell you a funny complaint story. When I was an investigator, I went into a company and I had a complaint. And the complaint came from the safety director on hours of service. And it was documented, but I'm not allowed to turn the safety director in. So I go in the conference room, the owner's like, who turned me in? I said, someone filed a complaint on hours of service. If I found out who that was, and he's just going on and on and on, little did he know the chick right next to him is his safety director. She's the one that filed the complaint on him. So I'm
She's
sitting
the
here.
mole.
I'm sitting here. I'm like, well, I can't tell you. And she's like, phew. Right? and I'm sitting there and I know it's her, right? But I can't say a word. And then I picked the drivers, and it was one specific driver that was being forced to do something, right? And she didn't like it.
Yeah.
So I had to pick my sample size, which is 11 drivers in this case. Well, he was one of the 11. And then the owner was like, I bet you it was him. But it wasn't him either, right? And she knows it wasn't him, but he's now thinking it's her. Or that driver.
Yeah.
So I'm just sitting there doing the investigation. So I did the investigation, and I found it that the company did force the driver to do things he shouldn't have done, right?
Wow.
There were text messages. There was plenty for me to go on. But that's how a complaint works. So should a trucking company fear a complaint? Yeah. Now, can they be frivolous? No. When you do the complaint, it has to be absolutely documented with something to give them when they come in. You can't just say, this company's unsafe. No. This company did this with this driver on this day with this load going to this location to there. Now I know I can find it. And when I find one, then I can go further. So you can't just do that. Fair enough?
Yeah.
The next one would be a bad crash. Now, did I say all fatalities? No. Not all fatalities prompt a review to the trucking company. You could kill someone and the feds will never come. I had an incident once where a mother, father, and a 2-year-old boy got T-boned, and they all passed. And the 6-year-old daughter was a paraplegic. The feds never came. And that trucking company, I had knowledge, because I was doing consulting, I had knowledge that the driver had a previous positive in his past. He didn't have a positive at the time of the crash, but he had one in the past. It was right in the file, and the feds never came.
Wow.
It's like, you know, that's just unbelievable that they wouldn't come. So now, moral of the story is, the crash, and this ain't about Tracy Morgan, but you know Tracy Morgan?
Of course.
You know how Walmart hit Tracy Morgan? I think that was in Philly, wasn't it?
That was in Jersey, I believe.
It was in Jersey?
Yeah.
So this Tracy Morgan crash, he lost a good friend of his, and we never want any fatalities to happen. So, you know, that was tragic. Tracy Morgan got hurt really bad, and he had a long road to recovery. The feds came in and investigated that along with the NTSB, which is the National Transportation Safety Board. They grounded a whole team to investigate the Tracy Morgan crash with Walmart, and his friend had passed and he got injured. I ain't saying that's wrong. I love that they came in. But why didn't they come in the other one?
Right.
You have to be famous. You have to make the news. So do all fatalities and bad high-profile crashes end up in a review from the feds? The answer is absolutely not, right? Should they? I think maybe, especially if it was the fault of the carrier to come down to exactly what it was. The plaintiff's attorney will sue him. Why can't we go and do an investigation? And then the last one's called Operation Unsafe Driver. You know how companies have CSA scores?
Yep.
Did you know drivers have a score?
Talk to me about it. What is it?
They do. It's called the Driver Information Resource, but it's only available to investigators. So you know how you have a DOT number and they give all the violations and they put 321 over 2 years and they give you a score and compare against everybody else?
Yeah.
Well, all the drivers have driver's licenses in their PSP. So then they take all the violations for the driver and they score him. So the government can go in right now and go and find the worst 30 drivers in the country score. And then they can go into the PSP and see where they last worked. Then they can go in and go to that employer and see if that driver went somewhere else and they got a background check. So you can find the driver forward. So I did this. When I was an investigator, I would go in and I would find the driver and see where he is now, go to the company, and then do a review at the company. Company's like, why are you here? Our CSA is good. We didn't get a complaint. We didn't kill nobody. Yeah, but you were dumb enough to hire him, right? You should have never done that, right? You were doing like, you're like a 75%er. You missed about 1/4, right?
Right.
So those are the 4 reasons that you
That's
can
funny.
get a review.
Yeah.
And then when they come in and knock on the door, now it's either going to be a full review or a focus review. Back in the olden days, when I show my age, back in the old hours of service, there were no focus review. Every review was full. And if you got a review, it absolutely resulted in one of 3 ratings: satisfactory, conditional, or unsat. The review did. You still had non-rated. Those are the people that never had a review. So 4 outcomes of a review: conditional, unsat. Those are the ones the brokers are going to cut you off now with this new ruling. Satisfactory or non-rated. Historically, non-rated are the people that never got a review. Now you can be non-rated if you get a focus review and pass. How hard is it to get a satisfactory rating today? It's next to impossible. And a lot of people are like, I want a company with a satisfactory rating. Do you understand, broker and shipper, that the only people that get a satisfactory rating are the ones that have been here a long time, that did a full review back in the day, or someone now who gets a full review? Well, who gets a full review today? This is hilarious. If you have 4 or 5 CSA alerts, they'll do a full review because they can't focus on one area because you suck everywhere, right? So you get a full review. So that's one way to get a full review. Another one is to file a complaint on yourself across all aspects of the whole operation. Then they have to check everything.
File a complaint on yourself.
Yeah, you complain on yourself. The third way to get a full review is to hope that the investigator who's required to get 8 full reviews a year to keep his certification only has 6 of them, and it's August, and it renews in September, and he needs 2 full reviews, so then his federal program manager will assign him to go 2 full reviews on a 1 alert company. And then they'll be like, how come I'm not getting a focus review? Because I got to get certified.
Right.
So the only way to get a satisfactory rating now is to be absolutely horrible or lucky, or have one from years gone by. So this whole fallacy about satisfactory is better than non-rated, that's a joke today. If anything, non-rated means you've never done anything wrong. If they did a review, you passed, or you never had one at all. So to me, what's better? Non-rated. So when I'm vetting carriers for the new broker standards, don't look at non-rated as worse than satisfactory, because it's not true, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'm gonna tell you another funny thing about this whole rating process. Let's say I'm conditional, and the government is going to close out my review, and I'm non-hazmat. The regulation says that I have 60 days before that rating hits the public of conditional. Meaning, once it hits the public with this new ruling, I'm going to be shut off. So if you're conditional and you fix the problems, you can do a 385.17 upgrade request. It's a big packet of crap that you give to the government, and then they approve it and give you your rating back to where it was or where it should be. Better than conditional, right?
Right.
Problem is, when you submit the upgrade, it goes in a queue with the government at the bottom of the list. And then they do the top one, and you start moving your way up. If it takes more than 2 months, you ain't getting your upgrade. You're going to have to sit there out of business with a conditional rating because they took too long because they don't have enough people to
Right.
get to you.
Right.
However, let's say you're at the bottom of the list conditional, and there's 100 in front of you, and the next company comes in unsat. Same 60 days. That unsat company goes to the top of the list. Because if you don't get an upgrade in 60 days as unsat, you lose your authority. If you don't get an upgrade within 60 days as conditional, you can keep working. So the government doesn't want to put people out of business. So if you are unsat, you go to the top of the list. If you're conditional, you go at the bottom. This is a joke. You go for the review closeout. You're this close to being unsat, but you're conditional. You're conditional. You can do an upgrade. You can say, you missed a positive driver. Jim is positive for marijuana, and I used him. I swear, I used him. They're like, oh, you did? Yeah, you didn't catch it.
Right.
So then they write you up for that, and you flip to conditional. Now you go to the top of the list. Now, I'm not saying you should do that.
Right, I got
but
you.
What a joke.
Right.
The whole upgrade process is. They did fix it a few years ago because Wisconsin would do these upgrades within weeks. Illinois would take months because there's a lot worse carriers in Illinois and not enough staff for FMCSA. Wisconsin, better carriers, more seasoned veteran staff. So Wisconsin would upgrade quickly, Illinois wouldn't. So then they changed it and they made each service center, you send them all into the service center, so now Wisconsin carriers get thrown down at the bottom. So it takes longer now, you see? So it's kind of like an inside information that I have, but it's a joke. And, we laugh about it, but the goal of FMCSA is ultimately to reduce crashes and save lives. That mission statement is important. I support it. I'm still an FMCSA guy at heart. I want the right thing done, and podcasts like this are important to get the message out, not only to teach your drivers, to get these bad apples and tell people what they can do to fix it.
Yeah.
So the compliance review, it's a fear for people, and then if you get a fine and penalty, that's the least of your worries. You get a $10,000 fine as a result of the investigation with a conditional rating, that $10,000 means nothing if you can't get that rating fixed, especially with the new court ruling. I would rather be non-rated or satisfactory with a $50,000 fine than I would want to be conditional with no fine.
Right.
Because I'm going to lose way more than 50 grand.
Hit you right in the pocket.
When it comes, because I'm gonna be shut down at the knees now, especially with this new thing. Now, those out there that do get a fine, I'll let you know right now. They send you a letter. They tell you to pay the fine. Don't ever pay the fine. Do what's called arbitration, where you're not saying that what you did wasn't wrong, but you want to negotiate the fine. Just send it in. Automatic 25% off. Just call it in. They'll call you and say, we'll give you 25% off.
Right.
So if you have a $10,000 fine, just send them the stupid letter. They'll give it to you for about $7,500.
There you go. Discount the fine.
Yeah, if you're a really good company and you can argue that, hey, this is an anomaly, we're going to go out of business, maybe they'll give you 50%. And they'll also put you on a payment plan. So and there's some consultants out there. I won't do it. I just told you for free right now.
Right.
There's some consultants out there that'll be like, I'll get your fine reduced by a quarter if you pay me $3,000.
Right. All they had to do is make the call themselves or send it in.
Yeah, send it. It's a stamp.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how much a stamp is today, but what is it, like 56 cents or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, whatever. I don't even know. Who writes a letter anymore anyway and puts a stamp on it?
Crazy.
Yeah,
Crazy.
I actually used a stamp the other day, and I went and licked it. My wife's like, what the hell are you doing? I forgot that they're just sticky on there. Like, I'm just so old.
They finally started using some sticky substance on there to stick them on
I
there.
went,
You don't gotta lick it
what the
anymore.
heck was that?
Now you're licking that off.
Yeah, so.
Jeez Louise. Man, great. All right, so we kind of talked about Tracy Morgan a few minutes ago. Crash investigations. Let's talk about that. How many crash investigations have you been a part of?
Well, when I was on the state patrol, I would respond to crashes.
Yep.
And now, working in insurance, because I said I did that for quite a bit of time, I would handle claims. I actually think I'm pretty good at claims, and that's what I do a little bit here is educate people on claims handling.
Okay.
Right? So now, here's what I would tell everybody when it comes to a crash at the time the crash happens. Absolutely, you're going to render aid to anybody injured if you can. You're going to call 911 and get the emergency services because that person's life that might be injured or, Pat, that's the most important thing about this crash investigation is to get some help to the person who might be injured. You agree?
I agree.
Come on, that's
100%.
number one. Number two is don't have the scene cause more carnage. Get your truck off the road. Get out of the way. Put out a fire. Stop whatever it is. Secure the scene and get emergency personnel on the way and attend to the injured. Now what usually happens is you call the company and you're like, I just got in a crash. And safety directors don't do this, but they're like, what happened? What's the load? Was it your fault? Where are you? What are you doing? Shut up. You have plenty of time to ask that in a few minutes.
That's exactly how it goes, too.
What you need to do is you need to say, okay, driver, I'm glad that you got 911, you secured the scene, and you're not injured. Go take pictures and video. Of what? Everything. From distance, from close, all angles, side. Take 1,000 pictures and do it now. You need to take the video and take the photos before the cop gets there. When I arrived as a police officer, I would say, sir, it's safe for you to be in your vehicle. I need to take pictures for my company. Get in your vehicle. I don't want to. Turn around, put your hands behind your back, or get in your vehicle, right? You know what I'm saying? So you make the driver get in the vehicle. Now he's sitting in there and he can't gather the evidence we need. With these nuclear verdicts and with these lawsuits, we need to gather evidence. Now, does that mean you should take a picture of the injured?
No.
Well, it's actually kind of a debatable question. You ready?
Talk to me.
If it's carnage and blood and disgusting, it's inhumane to take a picture of an injured person. But what if it's the person that gets out of their car, slings a backpack on, grabs their skateboard, starts skateboarding over to the officer? When I say they're injured, they're going to claim they're injured when the plaintiff's attorney gets a hold of them.
For sure.
My back, my leg, my
100%.
arm, my dad. So assume everyone is going to claim an injury at a crash. And as long as that person is not gravely injured or badly injured and it looks like they're perfectly fine, get them on video and get a picture of them at the scene. So when they're like, I couldn't even stand up with the crash, but they're doing jumping jacks, you see? Get that information. And if they're like, well, I can't take a picture of someone, well, you can do it nonchalant, but there is something called paparazzi. Do you think that these stars want pictures of them when they're eating dinner? But they get it because it's absolutely okay to take photos. And you can just be taking photos of the scene is what I would suggest. And nonchalant, just include the person in there doing something.
Right.
Right? Again, if it's disgusting, you don't do that. Come on. I mean, there's got to be some common sense there. So now, when the cop says, what are you doing out here? Get in your truck. Then you say, okay, you already have 100 pictures and 20 videos, right? You get in the truck, then you get a hold of your safety who already knows you crashed. And they say, send me a ping of your location. Well, I have an Android. Your safety director should know how to do it. I have an Apple. Safety director should know how to tell you to do it. They send you a ping. You send them a ping. Now they know where the crash is. Then they say, what happened? What's going on? What's your cargo? What's your blah, blah, blah. How long are you going to be sitting in your truck while the cop's there? Hour? That safety director has an hour to talk to you. Don't squander your opportunity to get those pictures. Even environmental is a big thing. If you see like a big pool of diesel fuel that
EPA,
leaked,
yeah.
and it's not quite in the ditch, but they're claiming it is.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, this thing stayed on the cement.
Yeah.
You don't have that picture? They're like, it went into the ditch.
Yeah, $20,000.
Yeah. and a little free picture would have done it if you would have taken it before the cop was there.
Right.
Now, when you get a crash report from the police department, and you're like, can you send me the pictures the cop took? There's 2. You know what I mean? There's like none in there. We're not relying on the officer to do our crash investigation. Now, the problem is the drivers don't know what to do. Why? Because if you hire good drivers, what have they never done? Crashed. So when they crash, they don't even know what to do.
Yeah.
It's your job to train them before the crash and ingrain it in their head what they should do. So during my driver meetings, what I just said to you, I have trained all my companies on how to handle a crash. After the crash is over and the scene is cleared, then everything moves pretty slowly. Drug testing, though, doesn't. Post-accident drug testing. If I had $5 for every call I've gotten at 10 o'clock at night, do we need a test or not?
DOT reportable.
Yeah, so if somebody died in the crash, you need a test.
Yep.
No matter whose fault it was.
Or bodily injury, right?
Yes and no. There's 2 things. In my left hand is a DOT crash. In my right hand is drug testing. They're not the same. They're very close, but they're not the same. A DOT crash is a fatality. Drug testing, fatality, same. Bodily injury treated away from the scene, DOT crash. Disabling damage requiring a tow, DOT crash. Over here, bodily injury treated away from the scene, but my driver didn't get a ticket, no test.
There you go.
It's the ticket
If they're
piece.
cited, yeah.
So you have to be cited for a moving violation for bodily injury or disabling damage for testing, but it's still a DOT crash.
Right.
So these are not identical, and there's so many safety directors that think these are the same.
Yeah.
It's a DOT crash. You need a test. It's a DOT crash. No. Now, the problem is if you test them without a ticket over here and they sue you, they'd actually have a leg to stand on because you violated their rights. You tested them in a scenario that isn't even outlined in your drug and alcohol policy.
Right.
Now, when in doubt, do it anyway, because during a review, when they come knock on a door, we didn't cover this when we talked about a review, but they have violations that are called acute and critical. And then they have other violations that aren't acute and critical. You can have 8 million non-acute and critical violations, and you will never have a conditional rating. You get a few acute and criticals, conditional, unsat. Acute and critical violations in Part 385 of Appendix A of the Green Regulation Book, that's what lists all the worst violations. Not doing a post-accident test when you were supposed to, critical. Doing one when you weren't supposed to, not. So when in doubt, I hate to say it, do it. Because you don't want the critical rating in the conditional, the critical violation, which could result in a bad rating. You see the difference?
Yeah.
Now, it's a delicate balance, but in your accident packet, we have one at Trucking Wins. So Trucking Wins, we have an entire forms library I've developed, and it's got a nice little crash sheet that you're talking about, and it outlines all these steps, and says, including take photos before the officer comes.
Right.
If you downloaded this at Trucking Wins, it's in color, looks real pretty, it's two-sided, you can laminate it and give it to the driver, and it has a chart on when post-accident is required also. So it's kind of a nice little cheat sheet handout, these little white papers. So
Yeah.
we have that too.
Okay. Good deal. All right. What else do I want to talk about now?
I'm having fun though.
No, we're rocking and rolling, man. Okay, this is where I want to go. Expert witness. You've also been an expert witness for accidents. So
Yeah, for accidents.
talk about that. How did you become that? How did that happen? And then talk to me about some of the things that you've seen during that time.
So I used to be a state patrol inspector, investigator with the feds, hazmat agent, sold insurance, and did a lot of consulting. I did a lot of seminars in Chicago where I'd invite trucking companies. I might invite an attorney in to talk with me to trucking companies. So with all of that, recognition over the years, people found out who I was. Not everybody knows me. I don't have followers or nothing. I'm just following you around. I'm just kidding. But I got my name out there, and then trucking companies that were getting sued or insurance companies that had attorneys were well aware of who I was. So they would call me up and ask me for advice. Now, interesting about being an expert witness, and I don't know if anybody realizes this, the attorney can disclose me to the plaintiff's side that I exist as an expert witness, or the attorney can hide me. And if I'm just a consultant and I'm not being disclosed as an expert witness, I can help the defense, and the plaintiff's side doesn't even know I'm there.
Get the hell out of here.
But what I don't do is I don't talk directly to the trucking company. I talk to the attorney because they have attorney-client privilege, and so do I as an expert.
Right.
Now, the second that they disclose me in a position I'm taking as an expert witness, then the other side has a right to depose me. If I'm over here as a consultant without any disclosure of me to the plaintiff's side, they're like, how did this defense attorney know all of these strategies to defend this trucking company? We're, and I don't want to say the names, but we're right? We're
Right.
I have all these, and I'm, where I get these names off all the billboards all over the country, right? I can just read them all. I can see their little faces on there, right? We know who they are.
For sure.
But anyway, we're not going to do that. So the plaintiff's side has a defense attorney. They have all the money from all their previous cases and all these experts and everything else. And the defense attorney doesn't have as much. And then I show up secretly behind the scenes and I say, tell him this, tell him this, tell him this, do this, do this, do that, do that. I look at the logbooks. I look at the DQ. I look at everything. I give them everything to defend the lawsuit. That's legit.
Yeah.
And then they go and defend the lawsuit. They come back and they're like, that was great. And the other side's probably like, who is this guy?
Right.
Well, if they disclose me, then I have to get deposed. Problem with me getting deposed in that case is, what's my background? I was a state patrol inspector. Mm-hmm. I was a cop. I was in the military, all this other stuff. And I work for the defense. They'll say, have you ever worked for the plaintiff's side? No, I've only worked for the defense side. Then they'll say, you sold insurance. And this is your company, or this is your insurance agency. You just want to say what they want to hear so you get better rates for your other customers. So then they'll try to twist my relationships and the stuff I've done in my career to make it look like I have ulterior motives and that my integrity and my ethical standard is being compromised.
Yeah.
So over here, I like this better. I have been deposed, and it's hilarious. They get you on there for 3-4 hours, and they ask you the same question 86 different ways, and I stay pretty strong, and I'm like, you can keep asking me the same thing over and over. I'm going to give you the same answer with just different words, right? And I'll say that in my deposition. I'm like, it's fine. But I prefer just to give the advice and then let them. This is crazy. The defense has hired witnesses or experts to testify, and I've trained their experts on what to say.
Wow.
But then they don't know who I am.
Wow.
It's just kind of fun.
That is crazy. Now, the defense, I'm going to say, is definitely the more challenging side, especially in the trucking industry, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to defend an accident against a trucking company. So what are like give me some of the things that you've been able to help the defense side, whether to overcome a verdict or whatever the case may be.
All right, so
give me a little bit of secret sauce here.
So this one just happened, right? It goes back to a complaint. I had a trucking company in Michigan, and there was a lawsuit, and the person filing the lawsuit said after the incident, they filed a complaint with the federal government. Well, if they filed a complaint with the federal government, you would see a review online in their history, because you can't do a complaint investigation at FMCSA and not have a non-rated review with a date. So I went and looked, and since the crash, the company never got a review. So I called the state of Michigan Division Office of FMCSA, and I said, hey, did you get a complaint on this? Yes, we did. It's all FOIA, Freedom of Information Act. They have to tell me. And I actually knew the guy too, right? So I said, did you get a complaint on this? And then they said yes. I said, did you investigate the complaint? They said there wasn't enough. There wasn't enough documentation to warrant a full investigation. Remember, I said you can't just say they're unsafe. You have to give them a reason.
Right.
They didn't even do the investigation because there wasn't enough basis for it. So I got that email and the response back that no investigation was being done. I gave it to the defense side. So now the accusation that they made that we did wrong was defended by the feds, didn't even want to check into it. Nice. So then we talked about driving at the facility in yard move. The driver said that the company had forced her to drive over hours because she said, once I got to the facility, they were going to hold me up, and then when I had to leave, I'd be over hours. Didn't I already explain that you can use yard move when you get there?
Sure.
Didn't I say you could just go and do a split and everything else? You can PC from a truck stop and go, or from the shipper and go to the closest truck stop. It's legal under PC. She just wanted to go home. And she didn't want to do the load because of that. So then I gave them the regulation and the information. I looked at her logbook, analyzed it, and showed them that this is the case. So those two things were that one. Now, another one I had, this is crazy. A driver said that his ELD was malfunctioning, but it wasn't malfunctioning. What happened was he forgot to log off last night, and a mechanic drove it in the middle of the night, and it was driving time, and it messed up his log. So when he came in, it said he had no hours, and he didn't call safety. He just said it was malfunctioning. He started filling out a paper log.
Okay.
So then he drove with a paper log, but that's not a malfunction. That's user error.
Yes.
You can fix that by putting a remark or editing it or assigning that to someone else. But
Sure.
because it was automatically recording driving time, a remark should have been placed, and he should have ran his ELD. So he didn't run the ELD. Problem is, it was still connected. So he's running a paper log like old school comic book,
And still driving.
and he's still driving. And now when he crashed, the paper log didn't match the ELD.
Right.
Because the ELD was tracking all his driving time, but he wasn't interacting with it because he had ignored the problem and he was filling out a paper log. Fortunately, they wrote him for a false log at Roadside because they compared the paper log to the ELD and activity and stuff. So they wrote him a false log, said he was over hours. That was the inspection with the crash. I came in and I looked at the ELD, and even though he wasn't filling out the paper log to match the ELD showed he was not over hours.
Right.
So I was able to say, yes, the log's false, but the ELD was tracking and it was functioning properly, and it's an accurate representation of what he did.
What he actually
and
did.
what he actually did still wasn't in violation. He was just lazy in his logbook. It wasn't malicious.
100%. And
So-
they try to say it was a falsified
And they tried
log.
to say he's falsifying. He was
Right.
running paper because he was trying to sham and go over hours. And if I didn't get involved and analyze the log,
They would have known the difference.
They might have just said, "Yeah, it's false." Rah, rah, rah.
Yeah.
But I'm like, yes, he's wrong. He shouldn't have filled out the paper one. It was human error. The paper one should have matched his real activity. It didn't. It is false, but it's not false in attempt to conceal because the ELD data behind the scenes, it was an unassigned trip, was not over hours based on his activity. So these are just examples.
So
but
did they win?
They did. Well, I wouldn't say they win.
Not won, but were they not
The
persecuted to the full extent of the
I
law?
would say the judgment was lessened
Because of that.
there was less of an argument that he was egregious.
Right.
Now, were there other issues? Yes, I'm just explaining the one
one part.
You're right. Just because I helped defend one of the bullets in the gun doesn't mean there's 6 or 7 more, you know?
Yeah.
You know, there wasn't one arrow in the quiver. There was a few of them in there. So I just took out one and snapped it in half. That was about it.
My goodness.
But I take pride in helping trucking companies. Now, will I sit there and manipulate to defend a trucking company that's wrong? I won't, you know? I mean, everyone kind of does a little bit here and there, and I'm not unreasonable to know that's the case. But in no way, shape, or form am I going to compromise my integrity. I used to be in the military. I used to be a police officer. I care about this industry, and the liars and cheaters need to go away because that's why the rates are low. That's why some of these companies are making money off the backs of the people that are doing it the right way. So for everybody out there, you know, I appreciate everything they do in trucking, so it's good.
Yeah, for sure. How much does, and this is like obvious, but I just want to hear the way you explain this. How much does compliance and safety just affect your bottom line as a trucking company?
All right, so compliance and safety. Let's just take that down to in layman's terms, right? If there was no FMCSA that would knock on your door and give you a bad rating to hurt your loads and to hurt you in a lawsuit, there's no FMCSA, then logbooks back at your company, maintenance files, DQ files, and all that would be unnecessary if there was no FMCSA and there were no plaintiff's attorneys, right? So if there were no plaintiff's attorneys, no FMCSA, who cares? If there was no roadside inspectors, who cares, right? So of those entities that can cause you trouble, plaintiff side, the federal government, and roadside inspections, of those, how does that affect your money? Roadside inspections increase your CSA scores. That affects your insurance rates. It affects your ability to get good freight from brokers. It gives you fines and penalties from the government, right? So if you have bad roadsides, those are the 3 main things. But let's talk about trucking, right? In trucking, we want to bring in as much revenue as possible, yeah?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the goal. Like, what are you in a business of trucking for? I want to make money. Well, how do you make money? You got to bring in revenue. How do you bring in the most revenue? You want good customers. You got to treat them good. You got to good direct lines with good rates. How do you do that? Good customer service, good scores, trust, longevity, all of that. Now, once you have the good rates, now you need to perform. Hours of service are very limited. So if you use these exemptions that we talked about, personal conveyance, split sleeper, yard move, you know, all of those things, you can actually add flexibility to a driver to get the job done to satisfy the customer so you keep those best lanes and do it legally. So if we can do good customer service, guess the best routes, run the best hours of service to get the job done, now we talk about maintenance and anything shutting you down. If you get pulled over at the scale and they shut you down, you lose money because you were late on your delivery. You don't get just in time. So if you don't get placed out of service, you use hours of service to your advantage, you treat the customers good, you get the best freight, now you have this bunch of revenue. Got a whole table full of money. Now, do you get to keep it all?
No.
Who takes it? There are 4 entities that take your money.
The driver.
The payroll.
Payroll. Yep.
Driver will take your money by taking payroll. Who else? Fuel. Fuel takes a bunch of it. Insurance takes a bunch of it. Who else takes a bunch of it? Maintenance, fuel, insurance, and drivers.
That's it.
Equipment, parts, all that. So let's talk about that. If I'm a trucking company with a bunch of revenue, I need to reduce 3 of those 4 expenses, not all of them. I want to increase one of those expenses if I'm a good trucking company. What expense out of those 4 do I need to increase to be the best trucking company?
What do you need to increase?
Payroll.
Payroll, yeah.
I need to increase payroll and benefits so I can get the best driver.
Yep.
Because the best driver is going to treat my customer to best. The best driver is going to use the hours of service. The best driver isn't going to hurt my CSA scores. So my goal is to bring in revenue and take as much of that revenue to pay my drivers benefits and payroll and everything, better equipment, everything. So my goal is to get insurance to go down, maintenance to go down, and fuel, right? So compliance and safety absolutely affects the insurance. Compliance and safety affects maintenance because you're beating the hell out of my car or my truck. I rented a car up in New Jersey. Ain't my car, right? We were leaving the hotel this morning, me and my buddy, and some guy had like a Charger, like a Dodge Charger, souped up RT or whatever. I don't know. Pulling out of the Avis rent-a-car. And I'm like, ain't his car, right? So he's beating the heck out of this car like maybe you have when you rented a car. But we can't have our drivers beating the hell out of our trucks because speeding, aggressive driving, excessive braking, all of that wears and tears on our equipment and hurts our expenses. So driver, if you can drive more compliant, less speed, less lane changing, less tailgating, less braking, less weaving, skidding, going around corners too fast, tearing up my tires, all of that. If you can drive that way, which is a less risky, more compliant way to drive, you're going to cause me less repairs. You're also going to cost me less fuel. Because if you don't speed and tailgate and run up to a traffic light, if you coast, you don't idle, you know what I mean? You're going to save fuel. So if you help me save fuel, that means you're not driving as aggressively. You're going to help me save equipment. And you're going to improve the CSA scores. It's going to drive down my insurance. So a key is to save fuel. Save fuel, the other two will follow. And if I can reduce insurance, fuel, and equipment, I got money left over for 401k and health benefits. Because when I say payroll, I don't just mean W-2 and 1099. I'm talking about the whole package.
Right.
So if I'm paying and giving the best benefits to every trucker in the country because they are helping me save on fuel, maintenance, and CSA, now I got better drivers to increase my revenue. What do we get instead? Anybody who's breathing, you'll hire. He'll speed and crash and violate and beat up your truck. And then after he does all that, he quits after he's left his CSA score in your wake.
Wow.
And then you're just, it's like peeing in the wind. And all you have to do is turn around and pee with the wind and you won't pee on your shoes. Like, I don't understand it sometimes. And I think what causes companies the most problem is they try to grow too fast. If you try to grow too fast, you can't get them good drivers. Just grow as fast as you can get the quality drivers you need. And as fast as your company can keep good profit margins with the freight you have. Don't be taking freight just to grow with no margin with a driver that ain't worth it. I don't understand that. Yeah. So, you know how I'm a DOT guy? I'm a big insurance guy, but I also like business of trucking. I like giving advice on how to grow the right way, things like that.
I love it, man. I love it. I love it. Trucking wins, man. Tell us about it.
All right, so I was, I won't go back to when I was in the federal government, but I sold insurance for about 8 years. I stopped earlier this year because I want to focus on trucking wins now and get the message out and help more truckers. My problem when I sold insurance is I had about a little under 100 customers, and I would only help them. And how did trucking wins come about? As I'm helping my current insureds, my customers, they would say, can you teach my drivers on personal conveyance? Can you teach me on split sleeper berth? Can you show me how to do a pre-trip and post-trip? Can you do a mock review? And a buddy of mine, co-founder of Trucking Wins, Mike Keener, he said, John, stop doing these videos for all of your customers over and over and over because I see you doing it. Record the videos and then have them watch the video and then answer their questions after they watch the video. Because you're pretty engaging in your videos, John. You're entertaining. You like to chat, right? So I was like, yeah, that makes sense. So I did the split sleeper video, personal conveyance video. I started doing videos. Now we have over 100 videos on Trucking Wins. So trucking companies can go in from insurance to claims to crash handling to hours of service to vehicle maintenance, and they can watch this slew of videos, right? Now, at first, we didn't have a website for it. I was just making the videos because he told me to. He goes, why don't you brand them as Trucking Wins instead of just these nonsense videos?
John's videos, right?
Yeah, John's videos. So he got me a little emblem, and if you go to Trucking Wins website, you know what? I'm going to regress, and I'm going to come back to what I just said. The Trucking Wins logo, he went to a bunch of aspiring artists on a website, and they manually designed our logo and sent it all in. And if we picked their logo, we paid them some money. Okay. It was kind of a cool way
I like that.
To get an actual human being to do the logo. I'm sad because with AI today, you just say, I'm Trucking Wins, give me a logo.
Yeah.
And then they give you a logo, and I don't get to pay this young aspiring artist to use their creative mind to do it. I mean, it's sad. So to you aspiring artists out there, thank you for giving us our logo. We
There
love
you
it.
go.
All
There you go.
So then he's like, let's brand it with this logo that I got from an aspiring artist. So I made all these PowerPoints there, and then I would send out the video, and they would log in and get the video, my customers, and then we started selling it to the public, and they would get these videos, and then they would have questions. Well, they ain't got my phone number. So then we started getting a bunch of emails, and they're like, what about this? What about this? The videos prompted some questions like we were just talking about.
Right.
So then my partner comes up, he goes, why don't you do Trucking Wins Monthly? I said, what's that? He said, it's like an internal podcast, question and answer, member only. So you got to sign up, buddy. If you, no, I'm just kidding. So we went on we went in and I started doing monthly question and answers.
Yeah.
So the members and my customers would come in and then they would ask me questions. They would ask about an hour or two. What about this? I got this roadside. Can I do a data queue? Can you do this? Can I challenge this? Can I do that? I have a crash. Here's a claim. And I just answer their questions. Well, we got a little bit of traction. It got a little busy. So then we started doing it every week.
Yeah.
So every Tuesday at noon
Okay.
via Zoom, Johnny Law, I'll tell you a story about that. Johnny Law goes on his little internal member-only podcast, and I answer their questions.
There you go.
We just chat. How long does it take until the last question is answered? If membership grows a little bit, which we think it will with this podcast and stuff like this, it's maybe need to get more structured as we get more members attending every week, maybe sending your questions and then I answer them.
Yep.
But answer them live so everybody gets the benefit of your question. Because you know how they always say the question out loud because everybody might have the same question, just afraid to ask.
Got it.
So I'm like, it's called professor hours.
Okay.
So I'm live every week. I got videos and I'm developing Trucking Wins University right now.
Okay.
Trucking Wins University is going to be a 6-week modular course with office hours at the end to explain how to become a safety director from A to Z. Like, here's FMCSA. Here is how reviews work. Here's DQ files drug testing. Here's hours of service. Here's maintenance. Here's hazmat. Here's your CSA score block. At the end of that module of course, I'll do like a test and a certificate and give you a little piece of paper. You know how everybody wants a piece of paper when you're done?
For sure.
So I'm going to give them that. Now, what I'm proud about it is it's more for small companies. You know, if you're a larger company, you got 100 trucks, you got someone in charge of drug testing. You got someone in charge of logs. But if you're 12 trucks, 10 trucks, 8 trucks, 5 trucks, you're the owner, you're the dispatcher, you're the safety director, you're the mechanic, you're the driver, you're HR. You got to do all of it. Where the heck are you going to get these answers from if I'm not out there helping you? So no offense to you 200 truck companies out there, but my goal is to be an asset and a resource to the small trucker in the United States because 90% of all trucking companies are less than 10 trucks. I don't want them to be pushed out because of things like this. I like the small trucker. I don't want all these big, large, big box carriers to take over the industry and the small trucker go out of business. So I'm kind of like more in a position in my career where money's great, yeah, right? Money's great. But at the same token, I'm happy to help people develop so they can be successful in their own business.
I love it. I love it.
So
this
that's
is a membership community exclusive
Yep.
to where you have the videos and everything on there, some exclusive content that you guys have on the website, and then also it's you every week.
Every week
And then
live.
you're also developing this academy
Yeah,
or
this
course.
Trucking Wins University.
And I love the fact that you're doing it to become a safety director because nobody's addressing that.
Yeah.
At least I don't see anybody addressing that, right? Like everybody's teaching people how to build the next $1 million trucking company, but nobody's teaching anybody how to do safety or how to do compliance, and that's really important.
And I'm going to tell you a story, right?
Sure.
Andy, right?
Who's Andy?
Andy's the guy I'm going to tell a story
I
about.
thought he just walked in.
No. Andy, shout out to you. So Andy was a driver and a part-time dispatcher at a trucking company. Trucking company got a review from the feds and they were conditional. I wasn't involved in them. They got word of me and I came in and I'm like, you just got this conditional review. We have to do an upgrade. They said, what does that entail? I said, we have to fix all your problems. I said, who's your safety director? They said, we kind of really don't have one. They were like 20 trucks. And I said, well, do you have anybody here who has half a brain that I can teach and I can show them what to do and they can help me do the upgrade? And they said, if we had anybody at the company, it would be Andy. So they pulled Andy out of dispatch, brought him over, and I trained Andy. We did the upgrade together. We got him back satisfactory because it was a while ago. right? Andy then become the safety manager at a 20 truck company. Then that 20 truck company was kind of I don't want to call it a dead end for him, but he had developed so well. He then applied for a job at a company with 80 trucks doing reefer out of Wisconsin. Became the safety director, got married. I went to his wedding, had some kids. I've seen his kids. Then he left the 80 truck company. Now he's at a company with 200 truck as a safety manager, managing multiple terminals and a bunch of facilities. Andy calls me rarely. It's mostly to say, hey, right? He doesn't ask me any questions because he learned them all. Who did he learn them from? He learned them from me.
Yeah.
So I look in the mirror and I think about Andy, and I'm proud that I took a dispatcher that was a driver and turned him into a really good safety director. And now he's helping his family out. He's got a new house. He bought a new truck. He's got a nice pool. He's a great person, and he's helping a company be successful.
Yeah.
And is that better than money? It is. So I'm happy to provide a resource for these people to end up finding a way to learn this so then they can be a better person, to provide for their family. It's tough finding jobs in this world today.
That's right.
And if I can mentor people to do it, that's what I want to do.
Truckingwins.com?
www.truckingwins.com.
Okay.
We have 3 tiers. If you're 1 to 10 trucks, it's $99 a month or $9.99 for the whole year. A little discount if you pay a whole year. 1 to 50 or 11 to 50 trucks is $199 a month, but it's $19.99 for the year. And then it's $299 if you're over 50 trucks, and it's $299 and then $29.99 for the whole year. So you get a little discount if you don't pay monthly. But if you can't afford to do the whole year, pay a small amount monthly, right? If it's a small company between 1 and 10 trucks and it's $99 a month, it's $25 a week. If I can teach you the ag exemption when you're hauling watermelon, you're going to make more than $25 a week if you just listen to what I have to say.
Right.
Now, I can't do it for free. I mean, I could, but I'm trying to make it a reasonable thing so the small trucker can afford it, right?
Sure.
But then do I think Schneider National should pay the same as a small trucker? No, they should pay me a little more. They're too big.
100%.
Right? So ultimately, we hope this takes off. If it doesn't, we have a great community already. We're real happy with the size we are. But I think the message to get out there to say, you know what, we're here for you.
I love it.
That's what we want.
Okay. And if you watch this show, we always end with a final thought. So first, we kind of talk about where people can find you. So truckingwins.com, where can people connect with you directly? Are you on LinkedIn? What's your thing?
You can always go look at my LinkedIn and click on there. I don't do much on it.
You're not really a LinkedIn guy?
You know, I told you my buddy kind of encouraged me to do this because all I do is care about trucking companies. He's more the media guy.
Got you.
He would go on my Instagram and my TikTok. But you can find me on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn.
All the good stuff.
You know, I mean, I don't go on there and like answer you directly all the time. If you want to talk to me, I'm there every Tuesday. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I do have some fee-based consulting options if you want to hire me and get one-on-one.
Okay.
But those are ones where you have to email hello@truckingwins, kind of explain what you want, and then we'll respond back and say, is this a fit? You know, I wish I had more time. I would do one-on-one with everybody in the whole country if I had more time. But the day goes pretty fast, and I want to help everybody. I just got to do it in the best way I can to reach as many people as I can.
I got you.
One last story I'll tell you is this. What truly motivates me from a long time back? I was an investigator at the feds. An article came across my desk, and it was the Coble family in California. They were driving down the road, and a driver was too fast for conditions, inattentive, and he rear-ended the Coble family. They had 3 children that passed away. The youngest daughter, her name was Katie, and she was 2 years old. They had a girl, a boy, and a girl. I read that article, and I said, come downstairs. And my 3 kids made a ruckus and ran down the stairs. I sat them down at my computer. I have a picture of it the day I read that article. My daughter's name was Katie. She was 2. Katie Coble was 2, and she passed away in a crash with a trucker. They were driving a Chrysler Town & Country minivan. That's what my wife drove. So literally, my wife is driving my 3 kids around a Chrysler Town & Country minivan. My youngest daughter's name is Katie, and Katie Coble lost her life that day because the driver was driving too fast for conditions. That's 20 years ago. I still use this in my driver meetings to show drivers that it isn't about the money. It isn't about making a load. It ain't about none of that. It's making sure the Katie's come home every night. So that has driven me for 20 years, seeing that video. So now where's my Katie today? She's 21. She's a senior cheerleading for the Wisconsin Badgers. Go Badgers, right? I get to pick up the phone and call her. The parents of Katie Coble don't get to do that. All because of one moment in time where a driver maybe was pushed too hard, maybe just drove too fast, wasn't paying attention for a couple minutes. It can all happen like that. So everybody out there, drive safe, drive for the Katies of the world. Let's do all these things the right way. Let's not run two logbooks, you EOD tampering people. Let's do things the way we should do it. And it's not for us. It's to make it so life is short. We want all the Katies to not get hurt.
That's right.
Yeah.
Good stuff, John, man. I appreciate it, man.
you.
This has been a great show, man. I feel like we covered a ton,
Yeah, it's great.
and I feel like I left a little bit more educated about hours of service and
Stuff, yeah.
everything
Yeah.
else. You know what I mean? Hustle fam, you know what we do around this time. If you smell something burning, it's only a desire. This has been another amazing show. Make sure you go and check out Trucking Wins. John, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
all
I
this
appreciate
knowledge,
you.
all this education. Make sure you guys go check them out. Hustle fam, we are out.
What's up, y'all? It's Ramel from Truck and Hustle, and I am super excited to announce that we are finally launching our Truck and Hustle Entrepreneurs Community. This is a place where entrepreneurs just like you can connect, collaborate, partner, and win together. Everybody's been asking me for years, man. They say, Ramel, you have such a crazy network. All these people who have been on the platform. You need to create something where everybody can come together and work together. And that's what we've done here with the Truck and Hustle Entrepreneurs Community, man. You'll see people from Truck and Hustle along with other business people that you see out there in the world moving and shaking. You guys can collaborate, network together, and win together. Go to the description right now and sign up for our first inaugural event. It's called Contracts and Cash Flow. This event is going to set the tone for your business in 2025. I know we're almost in the second quarter, so we got to hurry up, man. We got to get things moving. So let's make it happen. Click, join the community, and let's go. See you guys in a couple weeks. Y'all, listen, I'm happy to announce that we finally launched our YouTube memberships. Listen, if you want to support Truck and Hustle for all the hard work that we've been doing over the past 5 years, this is where you need to be. As a part of our memberships, number one, you'll get exclusive access to all of our archive content. Number two, we'll be doing at least one live webinar with one of the guests or somebody else from our network that you love to continue to add value to you and your business. Third, we'll be having exclusive behind the scenes content that we shoot and doesn't, make the final cut. So make sure you go check it out. Get that subscription right now and join us, man. TNH forever. Let's go. All right, guys, if you love Truck and Hustle and you love the interviews and the information that we're providing week to week, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel. All right, Hustle fam.